In Like Flint is the second of the Flint movies of the late 1960s. Is it as good as the first, Our Man Flint? Listen and discover. And since this is a Decoded episode, at the end we'll look at some of the movies that influenced In Like Flint.
And like Our Man Flint, In Like Flint is a spy comedy. It's a lighthearted spoof of the James Bond movies and other spy movies. James Coburn returns as Derek Flint, the world's most capable secret agent. And Lee J. Cobb is back as Cramden, which is good. I thought they worked well together in the first movie. Let's find out if that magic holds here.
All right, let's look at the opening. It puts the credits up front, without a pre-title sequence. Some sexy women shown through flames or something like that, and then the titles. The women on the island seem to function as a sort of simultaneous rather than pre-title kind of sequence, which I thought was like weird. Then it moves quickly to a rocket launch being watched by a woman at a spa.
Yeah, now did you say quickly? I mean, I thought this first part of the movie was terrible. I mean,
wow.
Yes, the women were very nice to look at, but with the way they're trying to show the action during the titles, I just found it was a boring 3 minutes and 45 seconds. It felt to me like the opening of a TV show, not a movie. And it didn't put me in a great mood right from the start. Now, the movie did get better, but that start, for me, just didn't work.
Yeah, well, I kind of disagree a little bit because they showed us beautiful women. We see that 4 or 5
That's
of them.
always good.
Yeah, 4 or 5 of them are kind of important, or they at least seem important. Then they move to Cramden on TV talking about how this rocket was the start of a space platform program. Okay, so that's interesting. And while he's doing that, we see and hear the red phone, the famous red phone, when the president calls. I thought it was a pretty decent setup. It establishes the two sides, the government and the space platform on one side, and these women and Operation Duffer on the other. So I didn't think it was that bad.
Wow, a pretty setup. Okay, well, you can have your opinion on that.
But you love the sound of the red presidential hotline phone made when we covered Our Man Flint. Well, it's back. We got a ton of comments from that episode on Our Man Flint from listeners all over the world that say they now have that ringtone on their phones. So, come on, it's back, Tom. You gotta love it.
All right, I did say I liked that, but the wow was because I was surprised you disagreed with me about that start. Oh, well, Let's keep going.
It wasn't snappy. All right, let's talk a little bit about the plot. The story really gets going when Zowie Chief Lloyd Cramden joins President Trent for a round of golf following the successful launch of a new American space platform. And we see 2 women in space. Remember, 1967, this is. The space race between the U.S. and the Soviet Union was very much a real thing. So this topic was red hot.
Well, and I did like the fact that the Zowie is back from the first movie. And that, of course, stands for Zonal Organization World Intelligence Espionage, because that means a lot. And like a lot of spy movies, the organization tries to have a fun acronym. But something strange happens when they go golfing. The members of the fabulous Face organization managed to replace the real president with a convincingly altered impersonator. Now, I've spent over 50 years on the golf course, and I've never seen anyone pull out a stopwatch while playing. So that was a little odd. I've seen it on the driving range, but not on the golf course.
But the movie needed a way for Cramden to realize that something is very wrong without knowing exactly what that was. And honestly, I thought it was cleverly done. Pull out the stopwatch to measure. I think it was going to measure how fast he swung the club or something, right?
Yeah, it was how long his swing was.
Okay, so
again, you see that on the range, not on the course.
Yeah.
Now, I actually think this was effective. It just was weird because of the stopwatch.
Okay.
And I thought it was a nice prelude to the Blofeld clones in Diamonds Are Forever. And then in 1993, we get the movie Dave. So, okay.
Yeah. Hey, look at this. This is influencing other movies already. We're only a few minutes into it. All right. And really, the concept here is pretty close to what today's audiences I think would recognize as human cloning.
Yeah.
Duplicated people, laboratory creations, replacements of real individuals, political manipulation through lookalikes, and all that kind of stuff. We weren't really talking seriously about human cloning in 1967, really. But In Like Flint was already there. We'd see the same idea later in Diamonds Are Forever, The Boys from Brazil, Multiplicity, The Island, and, like you mentioned, Dave.
Yeah, and they all had different ways they did it, which is kind of nice, but the concept still holds. Now, because of this, the president's been replaced. We've got a crisis. Cramden calls retired spy Derek Flint. He's still retired again, and they're getting him back into action again. And he's living his best life in his New York apartment. I mean, he's surrounded by adoring companions and just enjoying his life. But he does agree to dig into the mystery, and there's a fun touch. The women know Flint has 3 weaknesses. Remember in the first one, he had 4.
Yeah. All right. Now, his group of women here have been replaced since the first movie. He's got a different set.
It's not the same actors.
Yeah. No. He's got a different set here following him around. And I love that they repeat the dog bit from the first movie, which is, I thought that was good.
It was an extension of a comedic theme, so that was good.
Yeah. Cramden's cuff getting grabbed again when he arrives at Flint's penthouse. And then the dolphin bit, I thought, was a pretty good bit, too. Flint is writing a dictionary of dolphin sounds and communicates with them directly through sound waves in the pool. It feels very much like a Sherlock Holmes kind of thing here, right?
I would have loved to have seen the direction on that. Okay, sound like a dolphin.
Yeah. When Cramden asks about the previous women, which he does, Flint mentions that they all got married. But Cramden says something like, well, they were well prepared. It's like, okay.
That's one way to put it.
I'm not going there, but that's what he said. All right.
Yeah, that's a good thing. Let's not. All right, so Flint uncovers this massive global spanning conspiracy. There's this group of women who've established a secret headquarters in the Virgin Islands, and they're operating under the cover of a beauty spa called Fabulous Face. That was what I said. That's the organization that kidnapped the president. And their goal is to gain control of the world and run it entirely by women.
Yeah, there you go. Armed with incredible gadgets, quick thinking, and unstoppable charm, Flint travels from New York to Russia to the Caribbean, tracking down the truth and taking on the villains one by one. Like its predecessor, In Like Flint is packed with goofy action sequences, outrageous plot twists, and plenty of comedy. It never takes itself seriously, not even for a single minute. And that's the stuff that works. Some great bits like the poster scene, the euphoric acid sequence, and more. Pretty good stuff, I thought.
Okay, so that's a high-level setup for this movie.
Yeah.
Let's look at how it was received, because unfortunately this one got mixed to unfavorable reviews when it came out. A New York Times critic complained that despite all the beautiful women in the movie, it somehow still felt like it was missing any real excitement or energy. And that was my problem with the opening.
Roger Ebert pointed out that the Bond movies work because of their quick, breathless pace, and In Like Flint lingered too long over its jokes and special effects, making the whole thing feel slow and tired. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think it was terrible. I mean, IMDb gives it a 6.1 out of 10, where Our Man Flint got a 6.4. Those are probably good enough ratings for this thing. It's a middle-of-the-road comedic spy movie. Now, it does have a 51% on the popcorn meter, where Our Man Flint got 67.
And Tom, the popcorn meter is?
Well, that's the percentage of users who rated a movie 3.5 or higher out of 5. So the audiences didn't like it as much as the first one. That's pretty common for sequels.
Yeah, it is. And I think one of the big behind-the-scenes reasons for the movie's problems was that the studio didn't put much effort into it. According to James Coburn himself, 20th Century Fox rushed the movie into production almost immediately after the first one opened. But then they showed very little interest in making it good. Whoa. They just wanted to get another one out quickly. Money, money, money. Even the director, Gordon Douglas, seemed to have checked out. We'll talk more about that later in this episode. This was filmed and released in 1967, just a year after Our Man Flint. One area that got real critical praise was the musical score by Jerry Goldsmith. A critic writing in 2014 described the music as having wild, energetic grooves and exciting rhythms, especially in a sequence where the music plays around with the style of a classical Russian ballet. I liked that scene. That was a good scene. It was a great callback to the first movie when Flint mentioned that he teaches ballet in Russia. It's like, okay.
Yeah, and that was a fun scene. They did it campy, but they did it kind of straight at the same time. So I thought that worked. Now, at the box office, this movie did do enough to make a profit. There were about $5 million in North America rentals in 1967, which put it in the top 20 highest earning movies of the year. So it wasn't a total flop. The critics weren't fans, but regular moviegoers bought tickets.
Yeah.
And when we did our episode on the James Bond posters of the 1980s with Mike Reyes, he made the point of getting the moviegoer out to buy a ticket was all that really mattered to the studio. And today's viewers tend to look at it as a goofy, campy product at the time. It's fun to watch if you don't take it too seriously. And most people agree, like in the first, that James Coburn's performance is the best thing in it.
Yeah, it is. But one thing I think that nearly everyone agrees on is that the movie's attitude towards women feels very dated today. We talked about this in our Man Flint episode, too. The whole plot is built around the idea that women trying to take charge is something ridiculous and dangerous. A viewpoint that really hasn't aged well.
Yeah, it really hasn't.
No. Despite its flaws, In Like Flint has carved out a small but loyal fan base and is remembered as a fun snapshot of the 1960s spy movie culture at its most over the top.
All right, so let's move to the cast and crew, and we'll start with James Coburn as Derek Flint. Just like the first one, he's the heart and soul of this movie. Coburn plays Derek Flint with this cool, laid-back confidence that's almost impossible not to enjoy. I mean, he's got that big, toothy grin, that deep, resonant voice. Coburn just inhabits this groovy leading man. And whether he's performing Russian ballet, speaking to dolphins, or parachuting out of a plane disguised as a Cuban revolutionary, Coburn plays every ridiculous scene, and each of them are ridiculous. He plays them completely straight. And I think that's what makes this funny. I mean, he steals this movie.
Yeah, that is the funny part. And I think one of the best moments is when he's asked,
"What is it about you that makes you so irresistible to women?"
It's very simple. I don't compete with them.
I thought, okay, that's pretty clever. He kisses this woman who just asked him that. She's flustered and almost in a trance. This is how good he is. He says,
Now that ends the suspense.
You're quite right. I was curious.
hey, how cool is this guy? That's great.
Coburn appeared in like 70 movies during his 45-year career. Before he became a star, he had supporting roles in The Magnificent Seven and The Great Escape. Then 32 years after In Like Flint, he won his only Academy Award playing the abusive alcoholic father, Glenn Whitehouse, in Affliction.
Yeah. And before we move on, the title In Like Flint is, of course, a play on words. Many people use the phrase in like Flint instead of the original phrase, which was in like Flynn, meaning to achieve success quickly and effortlessly, especially with women. And the original phrase is believed to be a reference to the big Hollywood star and actor Errol Flynn. So there you go.
There you go. All right, so next character we need to talk about is Lloyd Cramden, played by Lee J. Cobb. It's the same Cramden, it's the same actor, but because of what happens to the president, he's confused for much of the movie. He's trying to figure out what the heck is going on. For me, I liked Cramden in Our Man Flint better, but I'm not criticizing Cobb's acting here. I think it's just what they did to the part, and I know there are some people who disagree with me on this.
Yeah, actually, I like Cobb's performance here. I think it showed more range than we got from him in the first movie, except for the ending of that one, which was cool.
I love how he changed in that first movie.
Yeah, I mean, one of the most entertaining moments comes when Cramden is forced to disguise himself in women's clothing. And Cobb, a deeply serious actor, plays the whole thing with a perfectly straight face and makes it even funnier because of that. He's so good at that.
Yeah, it could have been ridiculous if he tried to play it that way, but because he played it straight, it worked. And, now Cobb, he was nominated for 2 Academy Awards and 2 Golden Globe Awards, all for Best Supporting Actor.
All right, now we need to talk about Yvonne Craig. She's this Russian ballerina secretly working for the villains. Craig's real-life dance background: she was a professional ballerina who joined the ballet Ruse de Monte Carlo as the youngest corps de ballet member at age 17. She makes the ballet scenes feel completely natural, and she brings real energy to her scenes opposite Coburn. Craig is best known as the original Batgirl on the Batman TV series, which first aired in 1966, playing both the masked superhero and her alter ego, librarian Barbara Gordon. She joined Batman the same year In Like Flint came out, making 1967 quite a big year for Yvonne Craig.
Yeah, I thought she was really good at it. It's short, but I thought she does a good job there. Okay, the next actor to talk about is Jean Hale, and she played Lisa Norton. And she's essentially the female star of this movie. She's the smooth, cunning, fabulous face operative who does much of the villain organization's dirty work. She drugs Cramden, she stages the fake scandal, and she lures people into the conspiracy's trap. Unlike what I said about Gila Gordon's performance in Our Man Flint, Hale genuinely gives us a strong performance. Lisa Norton is always one step ahead, which to me makes her a truly effective villain. Now, she had an interesting start to her career because in the 60s she was hired by TV's Sing Along with Mitch. Not long after that, she was spotted by Sandra Dee's agent. She's walking down Fifth Avenue in New York and she gets spotted, which led to a contract with 20th Century Fox. So this acting business is really strange. You could just be walking down the street. You never know when your next big break's going to come.
Yeah, but then she blew it. She turned down a European promotion tour for In Like Flint. Fox dropped her, and she only got bit parts on TV after that.
Okay, on to Herb Edelman as the Russian premier. He's got a much smaller but highly memorable role. He plays this Russian premier as this pompous, blustering Soviet leader who turns out more bluster than bite. I mean, it's a comedic part, and he's perfectly cast. He's got this towering physical build and natural comedic timing, and it makes his character feel like someone who desperately wants to seem important, which fits the movie's playful, over-the-top tone. And much like Jean Hale, he has an unusual path to acting. Before he started acting, he studied to become a veterinarian at Cornell, but left after his first year. Then he went into the U.S. Army as a radio announcer. Then he went to Brooklyn College as a theater student and dropped out of that. He was later working as a hotel manager and cab driver, and one day, while driving his cab, he picks up famous director Mike Nichols as a passenger. Well, Nichols, of course, gives him his first big break by casting him in Neil Simon's Broadway production of Barefoot in the Park. It is really strange how some of these people get their parts.
Now, most people remember him as Murray the Cop in the movie version of The Odd Couple, 1968. And he was proficient in 8 languages. Man. And he was also a musician, a sculptor, and a painter. I mean, for a guy who started out driving a cab in Brooklyn, that's a pretty remarkable range of skills. Man.
But he only knew 8 languages. I mean, Flint supposedly was like 42 or something like that, including Dolphin.
And the last actor we'll decode is Andrew Duggan as the U.S. President. Now, Duggan's career was mostly in television, and he was quite active across a wide variety of roles. His most memorable moment here is being replaced by a look-alike, and Flint's reaction line upon finding out is,
Actor as president.
This was meant as a crazy joke in 1967. But Ronald Reagan was already the governor of California when the movie was released. Ronald Reagan, of course, was a big actor. He became president of the United States in 1981. What seemed like an absurd punchline turned out to be a little bit prophetic. Oh, man.
Yeah, an actor as president? Why not? Now, if there's one person whose work in Like Flint clearly stands out above everything else, it's composer Jerry Goldsmith. Again, not surprisingly. Critics who couldn't find much to say nice about this movie almost always praised Goldsmith's music here.
The score gives the whole movie a bouncy, playful energy that keeps things moving quickly, even when the story itself slows down. I like that. Goldsmith was one of the industry's most influential and innovative composers, over a nearly 50-year career spanning more than 200 productions. He received 18 Academy Award nominations, winning in 1977 for The Omen, plus 6 Grammy nominations, 5 Emmy nominations, and 9 Golden Globe nominations. I mean, the guy was good.
Yeah, he had it down. He just needed to get something off of Broadway and he would have had an EGOT. All right.
No,
all of that said, though, Dan, I thought the music in the opening felt too TV-like. It wasn't just the way the thing was shot. I thought in that title sequence, it was too TV-like. Yes, it got better as the movie went along, but even with Goldsmith and his music, none of that opening worked for me.
Okay, well, I didn't think it was that bad. I thought it was it was bouncy and kind of went along with what was going on. And I like when music enhances the scene, and you didn't think it did. I thought it did. All right.
Yeah, I didn't think it did, and I thought it felt like a TV show opening, not a movie opening.
All right.
So but whatever. Let's disagree on that.
Yeah.
All right. So then let's get into the director, Gordon Douglas, if we want to call him the director. He was named the director.
Yeah.
And he was a Hollywood veteran. He had decades of experience in action and adventure movies. But the behind-the-scenes story here is pretty messy. Coburn later said that Douglas really didn't direct the movie. I mean, he said Douglas was ill during filming and would often leave the set after briefly praising whatever was being done. And according to Coburn, he, the stunt coordinator, and the director of photography were actually responsible for much of what ended up on the screen.
Yeah, I mean, that's likely the big reason why In Like Flint wasn't as good as Our Man Flint. I mean, the director's kind of important to the success of a movie. And with Douglas's illness here, this one ended up with direction by committee kind of thing, which is rarely good. This kind of behind-the-scenes chaos usually shows up on the screen, and in Like Flint, it did.
Well, the only positive there is the movie was designed to be chaotic. So there's a little shielding there, but it definitely, you can notice that this was not solidly directed by a person.
One underappreciated contribution to In Like Flint is the work of the cinematographer, William H. Daniels, who gave the whole production its bright, colorful, very 1960s visual look. He replaced Daniel Pfapp, who shot Our Man Flint. The movie is genuinely eye-catching. Vibrant sets and locations that make it fun to watch, even when the plot loses a little momentum. His long career earned him enormous respect in the industry and stands as the reminder that In Like Flint, whatever you think of the story, had some serious talent behind the camera. He was good.
Yes, he was. He really was. Now, you just said something about the vibrant sets. When we talk about the negatives, I'm going to talk a little bit about the sets when we get there.
Yeah, okay, all right.
All right, so I'm kind of alluding we're going to talk about what doesn't work. Let's start with the positive. Let's talk about what works. And as I said earlier, Coburn makes it, he's the biggest strength. He's almost effortless in the way he actually does this. And like in the first movie, he never winks at the camera or lets you feel that he thinks the material is beneath him. This is what we're doing. I'm going to play it straight no matter what craziness is going on around me.
We mentioned this already, but the next thing that works is really the outstanding music. Jerry Goldsmith's score is one of the best things about In Like Flint. Another strength is that this movie knows what it is. It doesn't try to pretend to be anything else. One of the smartest choices the movie makes is leaning fully into its own absurdity. The villain plot.
It does that.
Yeah, the villain plot involves brainwashing women through hair dryers. Okay. The hero speaks dolphin. The Russian premier is a bumbling fool. The movie is played strictly for laughs, both cornball and subtle. And that self awareness keeps it from becoming tiresome. I liked it.
I'll give you that. It definitely knows what it's trying to do. It may not know how to get there, but it does. All right. So that brings us to the colorful visuals and the set design. Art directors Dale Hennessy and Jack Martin gave us some elaborate set decorations and fine costumes that make the movie colorful and fun to look at. It definitely has a lot of color to it. We get the Virgin Islands locations that give us a sun-soaked, exotic feel. And the villain's headquarters has this over-the-top quality that suits the material perfectly. It plays off the James Bond villain lair tradition. I'm even going to talk about the sets even more in a few minutes. This thing, I'm going to build up on the sets. They were vibrant. Everything was colorful. That part was good.
Yeah. All right, Lee J. Cobb. Let's talk about him. He's a great straight man. So he's definitely a good part of this movie. A comedy needs a good straight man. And someone who reacts to all the craziness with frustration and disbelief. And Lee J. Cobb just fills the role brilliantly, I think. Cobb provides excellent support as the intelligence chief who is perpetually exasperated by Flint's refusal to be a team member or a team player. A great example, the cross-dress scene only works because Cobb commits to it with total seriousness. Usually I don't like that kind of stuff in these movies. It's like, okay, but he did it so well.
Yeah, it worked. Somehow it worked.
Yeah.
All right, now, this movie does have some clever moments. Yes, the women hiding brainwashing devices inside of hair dryers is ridiculous. It's also kind of brilliantly absurd in the way the best parody ideas are. We also have to remember, in On Her Majesty's Secret Service, Blofeld planted his virus in cosmetic kits. Now, some reviewers have noted the movie's villains are actually more three-dimensional than in many spy movies of the era, and I think that's because of the women's motivations. However over the top, the motivations come from a real place of frustration rather than just pure evil.
Yeah. All right, now there are some things in this movie that do not work. All right.
A few.
I know, Tom, it's going to shock you, but the pacing might be a little slow.
Right. A pacing problem in a movie. Shocking. Positively shocking.
Yeah, I think probably the most common complaint about the movie, even from people who enjoy it, is that a spy spoof like this needs energy and momentum to work. The whole point is to keep the audience laughing and surprised. In Like Flint frequently stalls out, lingering too long, as Ebert said, over its jokes and its special effects. When a comedy pauses to admire itself, kind of like looking in the mirror, the jokes stop being funny. And they stop being quick and fast and in your face. The movie runs nearly 2 hours. It probably should have been maybe 90 minutes. 2 hours is too long.
All right. Another weakness is the plot. I mean, it is a total mess.
Well,
This
that would be a
story
big weakness.
is all over the place. Yeah, it is. It is. Flint goes from New York to Russia to Cuba to the Virgin Islands to outer space. And then the movie never quite makes all of these pieces feel connected. I mean, other spy movies globe hop, but it feels more connected.
Okay.
And this thing just takes way too long to get going. And as we alluded to up front, part of the reason that the plot feels so disorganized is that the movie was incomplete when the filming began. And the studio showed very little interest after ordering the sequel. And it shows. I mean, there are moments that feel improvised or patched together, and gaps that a more polished screenplay would have likely just filled in.
Yeah. Okay, I could see where the globe hopping and all that kind of stuff, it seemed a little superfluous, maybe. And they just kind of threw it in there because, hey, we got to jump all over the world like Bond did. But anyway, but it being not completely written when started doesn't mean it has to be a bad movie. There's some good writing and some great gags in here. But remember, Casablanca, one of my favorite all-time movies, maybe the favorite all-time movie, was being written as it was being filmed. And it's one of the greatest movies ever made. There you go. All right.
So I guess that can work.
Yeah, it could work. Now, this next weakness is big and confusing. One of the strangest weaknesses in Like Flint is that it doesn't use James Coburn enough. Yeah.
Okay,
This
that's
is a
bad
movie-
because he's like the thing that makes this work.
Yeah, this is a movie built entirely around Derek Flint. And yet Flint is surprisingly absent for large chunks of screen time. When your most entertaining ingredient is Coburn, keeping him off the screen for extended periods of time is a significant mistake.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Now, there's also a weakness that carries over from the first movie, and it's that the attitudes towards women haven't aged well. They may have worked, they may have been a little cringy, whatever at the time, but the entire premise is built around the idea that women trying to take charge is ridiculous. Flint himself casually dismisses the idea that they could competently run anything, and the movie largely agrees with him. And especially today, this aspect leaves a sour taste, and the treatment of women in Our Man Flint did as well. So, if you dig deeper, though, there is an argument to be made that Flint's real target is extremism, not women. In both Our Man Flint and In Like Flint, he repeatedly demonstrates respect for highly capable women.
What he's actually opposing here is coercion, manipulation, replacing one form of domination with another, and anyone seeking total control. That's what he's really opposing here. So his argument is essentially the problem isn't women running things. The problem is anyone trying to run everything. On the surface, it doesn't look great, but I think it's an argument that can be made here that he was actually supporting a good cause. But digging in, Flint does bring things down to earth. Pun intended. There.
All right, let's wrap our section on weaknesses with the special effects that I just thought these were lame. All right.
I think the word special
space
should be
sequences-
eliminated.
Yeah. Yeah, they were effects. They weren't special effects. The space sequences look cheap. The action sequences aren't exciting. And the fight scenes obviously were just pulled punches. You know, a lot of times you can fake that and make it look
Right,
good. They didn't do that here.
Yeah, I think that's true. And look, the space stuff. When you think about what Stanley Kubrick did 1 year later in 2001, A Space Odyssey, with space stuff, and then this Flint stuff, I mean, it looked like amateur at best, almost Flash Gordon-ish, really. I was actually looking for the strings. Okay.
Well,
It is
in its
that bad.
defense, it's terrible. But in its defense, the space stuff was only a minor part of the movie. In 2001: A Space Odyssey, that was the movie, so they had to get that right there.
Yeah, there's no.
But I think
no comparison.
no comparison at all. And I think the sets and the props here, this is what I was alluding to earlier. Yes, I love the vibrant colors of things. That was really good. But the sets and props feel flimsy to me. You know, they really weren't convincing. And they looked like they were cobbled out of cheap materials.
Oh, okay.
And
all right.
and the fight scenes clearly showed a lack of martial arts skills with a lot of the people. And all of this showed the audience that the studio rushed this movie out. They didn't seem to care. It was like, we had a hit with Our Man Flint. Let's get the next one out.
Yeah, I think there was some of that to this, that they certainly rushed it out because it was in production as Our Man Flint was released. So, yeah. And so, yeah, okay, maybe flimsy, unconvincing. It didn't bother me all that much, but the special effects, no. They were just effects. All right, let's switch gears and move into the influencers, and we'll start with what influenced In Like Flint. We aren't going to be able to call out all of them, and many of the influences that we called out in our episode on Our Man Flint are true for this sequel as well. So we'll stick to one or two things per influencer. Now, in our episode in Our Man Flint, we talked about the influence that vaudeville had on the movie. Now, we had a couple of listeners who said, "What? Vaudeville? What are you guys talking about? You're crazy."
I thought that was good. When you told me that up front before we recorded, I was like, oh, that's a good look at it.
I said, "That has nothing to do with vaudeville." Well, we're bringing it up again, sir. Much of that discussion is valid for In Like Flint as well. I'll highlight the cross-dressing scene in this movie. All right, this is deeply rooted in vaudeville tradition. American burlesque, vaudevilles rowdier cousin, was built on slapstick sketches, dirty jokes, and comic inversions, and men dressing as women was one of the oldest reliable gags in variety entertainment, going back a century. So there you go.
Yeah, and in vaudeville was not done like a drag queen. It was just a guy, and you knew it was a guy dressed up like that, which is different than the drag queen stuff we see today.
Yeah. All right, so on to James Bond movies. The Flint series was a direct spoof, of course, of James Bond. So let's look at 3 Bond movies that came before In Like Flint.
Goldfinger's probably the single most influential Bond movie on In Like Flint. Goldfinger gave us the Q briefing scene and the gadgets, and In Like Flint directly parodies this with Flint's multifunction lighter and special watch, which he hypnotizes people with and detects lies. Every time Flint pulls out a gadget in a completely over-the-top way, it's a direct wink at Goldfinger. And another example is the scene where Bond is strapped to the laser table, and that gets echoed in Like Flint. When the Fabulous Face Women, they capture Flint, and they explain their plan rather than just eliminating him. Both movies have so much of that same absurd quality of villains who talk too much. I mean, as we always say, Dan, 1, 2, 3, just shoot them.
All right, let's look at From Russia with Love, too, because that had an influence. That gives us this cross-dressing precedent. In the pre-title sequence, Bouvard dresses as a woman. In Like Flint pushes this to comic extremes, of course, when Cramden is forced to dress as a woman. The joke lands partly because audiences already knew the convention from Bond. And in Thunderball, Francois Derval is swapped out with Angelo Palazzi, who has had his appearance altered to look like Derval. So in Like Flint, someone's appearance is changed so he can take over as the U.S. president. So he had a lot of influences there.
Yeah, James Bond definitely had a lot. We'll stop there. There are definitely more. But let's move on to the TV series Get Smart, which came out in 1965. That was created by Mel Brooks and Buck Henry, and it established the template. Make the spy himself ridiculous. Surround him with absurd gadgets that don't quite work right. Pin him against an evil organization with a silly name. And Zowie in Like Flint has the same bureaucratic comedy energy, I think I'd say, as the government agency in Get Smart. And Cramden is constantly exasperated with Flint, and it directly mirrors the chief's frustration with Maxwell Smart in Get Smart. So both shows, the TV show and the movie, lean into the idea that the spy organization is almost as incompetent as the villains.
Yeah, all right, that's good. I like it. And I think if you want to stick with TV a little bit, the Avengers, I think, had a little influence as well. In the Avengers, we get a capable, stylish, independent woman who was every bit as competent as her male partner, sometimes more so. In Like Flint borrows this energy for several of its women, particularly Jean Hale's Lisa Norton, who is shown to be sharper and more in control than most of the men around her in Like Flint. The whole idea of women as genuine agents of power, even if this movie ultimately treats it as a joke, comes partly from the example set by Emma Peel. All right, and let's look at one more TV series, Batman, 1966.
You're going to Batman. Well, you talk about a campy movie, there's a campy TV show.
Yeah, In Like Flint was made at the same studio, 20th Century Fox, that produced the Batman TV series. And both productions were running at almost exactly the same time. You can see it clearly. Both share the same bright pop art color palette, the same willingness to play everything completely straight, no matter how ridiculous, and the same campy sense of humor when the joke lives in the gap between the characters' seriousness and the absurdity of what they're actually saying and doing.
I was surprised to hear you talk about Batman, but what you're saying there, that makes total sense.
I like seeing these kind of connections where you think you're not going to find them.
Now, one place you expect to find them are the Matt Helm movies. And the first was The Silencers, and we've got an episode we're queuing up on The Silencers. This one starred Dean Martin. It came out 1 year before In Like Flint. It showed that a spy spoof with a loose comedic tone could make money. And the Matt Helm movies leaned heavily into the spy as a bachelor playboy, surrounded by attractive women, of course. And it's an idea that In Like Flint just cranks up to 11. The whole concept of Flint's rotating household of female companions. But the joke is essentially the same. The spy is so irresistibly charming that women can't help but fall for him. I mean, it becomes both his greatest weapon and a constant source of comedy.
All right. I said we're finished with TV shows, but I'm going to have to mention Mission Impossible, 1966. Mission Impossible addressed the craziness of one spy being an expert in everything by assembling a team of agents, each with a different specific skill. In Like Flint is essentially a parody of this idea. Rather than a team of specialists, we have Flint who could do it all. So that's all we'll say about that. Let's go back 3 decades in time to Alfred Hitchcock's The 39 Steps, 1935. The 39 Steps established the MacGuffin, the plot device where everyone is chasing something important, but the audience doesn't need to understand exactly what it is or what it does. The space platform in Like Flint functions exactly the same way. The audience doesn't need to understand the technical details of the villain's plan. What matters is that it's dangerous, and Flint has to stop them. The 39 Steps also gave spy cinema the secret organization with a contrived name. Zowie has the same quality of sounding more impressive than the organization deserves.
Well, if we're going backwards in time and you're stopping at the 39 Steps, I'm going all the way back to Fritz Lang's Spione, or Spies. This German movie is arguably the grandfather of everything that's followed in spy movies, including In Like Flint. In Spies, they had secret headquarters, an agent known by a number, and a beautiful foreign agent who comes to love the hero. I mean, almost every major building block in Like Flint can be traced somehow to Spione. The villain Hagi owns a large bank, but it's a cover for his secret headquarters. This is directly done in Like Flint, where Fabulous Face is a perfectly innocent-looking beauty spa sitting on the top of a villain's operation. So the idea of evil hiding behind a respectable business, there's a direct line from Spione to In Like Flint, and it passes through Bond along the way. The action sequences, they laid the groundwork for everything that followed. And then the ending that reveals the villain's undercover agent is actually the mastermind himself in disguise. Boy, there's a link here as well. Yeah. So powerful authority figures operating under absurd disguises, played completely straight, is deeply embedded into In Like Flint's DNA as well, from the fake president to the women hiding brainwashing equipment in their dryers. So Spione, like it did in all spy movies, had an influence.
Hitchcock has had a lot of influence on a lot of spy movies, and certainly he has an influence in Like Flint. You go back and look at The Lady Vanishes from 1938, even North by Northwest from 1959. There are tons of things in those movies that had a direct influence on In Like Flint. Now, we're not going to go over every detail of those, but if you're familiar with those movies, you're going to understand and see the connections here as well.
And I think a really important influence came out of the Ipcress file from 1965. Right? It introduced brainwashing as a spy movie villain's primary weapon. And in Like Flint, the villains are brainwashing the women. So that's a direct corollary from In Like Flint.
All right.
You get the same type of thing in The Manchurian Candidate as well. So this whole early 60s to mid 60s, there was a lot of this brainwashing that came into movies.
Yeah, right. All right, let's wrap up with some of the movies that In Like Flint actually influenced. You Only Live Twice, 1967. The Space Race Connection. Here's a wild one, right? In Like Flint.
Wait, Dan, you said 1967. So these two movies came out at the same time?
Yeah. Both movies drew on the real world space race issues that were really going on at that time, and neither had time to copy the other. They were in production basically simultaneously, yet the similarities are striking. In Like Flint, a newly launched U.S. space platform is secretly staffed by enemy operatives, and the plot revolves around who controls it. In You Only Live Twice, an American space capsule is hijacked from orbit by an unidentified spacecraft, and the plot involves finding out who is controlling it and why. Both feature a villain organization secretly controlling a space asset as the key to world domination. Okay. Both end with the hero stopping the space weapon in the final act. Two completely separate teams arriving at essentially the same idea at the same moment. It's just kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's definitely one where we talk about influencers. We can't say who influenced who. It really was space, and what was happening with the space race influenced both of those movies. The next movie to look at is On Her Majesty's Secret Service. We have brainwashed women. So the concept of brainwashing gets brought forward into Majesties. Unlike the novel that Ian Fleming wrote, the movie brings us these brainwashed women to become the angels of death. They enter this hypnotic state. So it's almost directly parallel to the hairdryer brainwashing in In Like Flint. And the Bond filmmakers almost certainly knew In Like Flint.
In Like Flint's plot element of the U.S. president secretly being replaced by a lookalike almost certainly fed into the 1993 movie Dave, starring Kevin Kline. And so definitely have an influence there. The fake president idea is also used in Moon Over Parador, starring Richard Dreyfuss. And he's an actor recruited to impersonate the dead dictator of a fictional Caribbean country. Same basic premise as In Like Flint's actor replacing the president.
Yeah. Now, we can do no influencer discussion from In Like Flint without discussing Austin Powers. And there are so many things in here. We could go on for about 2 hours just on that, and we're not going to.
No.
The character of Austin Powers was primarily a spoof of the 1960 spy movies and was heavily influenced by Derek Flint. There's a scene that makes this connection undeniable at the opening of The Spy Who Shagged Me. Austin Powers turns on the TV and says, In Like Flint, that's my favorite movie. You can't get more direct than that. Right? No. And beyond that, the whole DNA of In Like Flint runs through the entire Austin Powers series. All of the gag, the cryogenic freezing, Dr. Evil's habit of explaining his entire plan. I mean, just the whole thing. Just remember, Dan, at the end of the day, what do these villains need to learn? Just shoot them.
All right, so let's sum this all up. In Like Flint isn't a great movie. The pacing is slow. The plot is messy. The script was unfinished when they started filming, and it's probably 30 minutes too long. But James Coburn is magnetic. Jerry Goldsmith's score is fantastic. And when the movie leans into its own absurdity, it genuinely works. So, most people agree Our Man Flint was better, but In Like Flint is still worth watching. Mainly, again, for Coburn. And clearly, plenty of filmmakers were paying attention. Its fingerprints are all over everything from On Her Majesty's Secret Service to Austin Powers and beyond. All right, that's a wrap of our decoding session of the 1967 movie In Like Flint. This has been Dan.
And Tom.
From Cracking the Code of Spy Movies. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to our show, where every episode reveals something new. Thanks for listening and spending part of your day with us. Please stick with us and listen and discover. And remember, in espionage, trust no one except us.
Thanks for listening.